Let's get down to business. No, not to defeat the Huns. That song ain't in this one. Hey there guys, how are you? And welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at Disney's latest live-action remake, Mulan. Of course directed by Niki, Caro, and based off of the 1998 animated classic. Alright, we all know this story by this point. The Huns have invaded, and a small village under orders of the Emperor, played here by Jet Li, have to put up one man from each household to go and fight. And the patriarch of the Hua household is a former soldier himself, but he's too old and too weak to fight at this point in his life. So this prompts one of his daughters, Hua Mulan, to disguise herself as a boy and fight in his place in an attempt to bring honor back to her home. Now before I get further into this video, thank you all so much for clicking on it and stopping by. I hope you guys all enjoy your stay. If any of you guys are new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can. That way you don't miss any of my future content coming up. I love talking movies and all things entertainment with you guys. And if you enjoy the video, please make sure to leave a big fat thumbs up on it by the end. So, let's talk about Mulan. This movie has gotten a lot of mixed reactions, hasn't it? Isn't that the case with all these Disney remakes, though? Throughout Disney's midlife crisis, as I call it, I've actually found a lot of enjoyment with a lot of these live-action remakes they've been putting out, especially with Cinderella, The Jungle Book, and Beauty and the Beast, even. Other ones? No. The original animated Mulan is actually a movie that I mistakenly failed to mention in the Disney podcast on my channel. I failed to mention that as an honorable mention in my rankings. No pun intended. But the original Mulan is one I really enjoy. I actually remember the first time I watched it was in my AP World History class, my sophomore year of high school. And I remember we watched it in class around the point we were starting to look at all the different Chinese dynasties that were coming to form. Shout out to Mr. Barnes, by the way, because I could not believe that it took me that long to watch this original Mulan, because I had a ton of fun with it. Even nowadays, I still find a lot to enjoy with the original Mulan. The musical numbers, the comedy with the soldiers, the lore, the girl power I think is an amazing aspect, and yes, I do think that Mushu, voiced by Eddie Murphy, is a lot of fun. Even though the casting in hindsight may not have been completely correct, I still enjoyed that performance a lot. So when I heard that they were coming out with a remake of Mulan, I was like, okay, let's see what they got. Now, my girlfriend, Lauren, whom I'm sure you've all met from the Disney podcast on my channel that I just mentioned, she was really excited for this movie too. So we both just watched it today, and all I'll say is as soon as the end credits came up, there was a moment where we both kind of looked at each other, and we both just kind of collectively shrugged. Yeah, this wasn't the best Disney remake that's come out. I have a lot of thoughts about Mulan. Now, I've been thinking about this movie a lot for about the past hour or so before I got in front of the camera and started talking to you guys. And this version of Mulan is a very mixed bag for me. And I actually find this version of Mulan very interesting, mainly because of the mixed reactions that it's received, especially over this past week on YouTube alone. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. I'm somewhere in the middle. Let me explain why. Now, let me start by saying this off the top. You gotta give Disney credit where it's due by at least attempting to make this version different from its predecessor. A common complaint I've heard about these remakes so far is that they're too similar to the animated classics. Which, if I could pause for a second, just a side note, it never really bugs me that films like Beauty and the Beast and, yes, even The Lion King, it never really bugs me that those films were so similar to the animated classics. Now, let's say you're a big fan of Broadway like I am. You've been a big fan of Broadway your whole life. And you go to the theater in the 80s and you go to see the original version of Les Miserables and you love it. It's the best thing you've ever seen. But then, when you go and see a revival of it in the 20-teens, you'll still love it. Because it's Les Miserables. It's that same material. That's why I was so excited to go and see Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson in the theater, because Beauty and the Beast is my favorite animated Disney classic of all time. And I loved that Beauty and the Beast remake, similar to how I would love a Broadway revival. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, as far as I'm concerned. But I saw the trailer for Mulan, and I gotta admit, it looked really badass. It looked like Disney was going in a completely different direction and a completely different tone for this movie. Almost like an epic war samurai movie like a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And I gotta say, this movie's action definitely delivers. That's the biggest praise I can give this remake, is actually these battle sequences and the fight choreography specifically. It all looks really cool and super badass. Speaking of, Yifei Liu as Mulan, really badass in the battle sequences herself. She clearly looks like she's trained hard and gave her all to this performance. I gotta respect that. I thought all the actors were really good. Jet Li is the Emperor, Jason Scott Lee is the villain. Personally, I have no problems with these actors or their performances. Great work. But I mentioned that Mulan, the character, felt very well trained. Almost like she doesn't need training. Now, personally, one of my favorite aspects of the original animated classic from 1998 was those training sequences. I'll make a man out of you, the side characters, the soldiers, I thought they were all super funny. And the comedy during those training sequences just has me busting up. And you get some comedy with the side characters here in this remake, and they're good with the material they're given. But with this remake, it never really feels like training is warranted, especially for this main character. And this is the thing that really got me, guys. There was a line by Donnie Yen as the commander, basically telling Mulan that she's the chosen one and rendering the entire training process a moot point for her. And me as an audience member is going... And you guys remember how I said there was some comedy in this remake during the training? It definitely feels out of place when compared to these big, epic action sequences. And that really brings me to my main issue with this Mulan remake. When I saw the trailer for this version, I was excited to see what it was gonna have, but like, I was also kind of concerned because no sign of Mushu, no sign of the ancestors, and no sign of those musical numbers either. A lot of those things that made the original Mulan fun were kind of non-existent in this version. To me, it just kind of felt like the fun was all sucked out of it. And it made for watching this remake honestly kind of boring a lot of the time. I don't know, maybe that's the whole idea because this is a war flick for all intents and purposes, and that war is not supposed to feel like fun. But come on, as an audience member, I gotta have a little bit more fun than this when it's Disney. Now, while I think the cinematography and the production design is actually really cool for this movie, I found a lot of problems with the way this movie was edited. My girlfriend called the editing of this movie hokey, and honestly, I could not think of a better word to describe it. It felt like they were overcompensating, and yes, there is such a thing as over-editing, especially with these battle sequences. I would like to say one more positive thing about this movie. I really admire the fact that Disney went all out to respect the Chinese culture and the lore with this flick, as well as the representation and the casting. I think it's so wonderful to see. Which brings me to this point that I want to make. All of the actors are speaking English. Honestly, I think if Disney really wanted to make this remake stand out from all the rest, and maybe even more importantly, send a message about representation, I think it's a relatively simple fix. Just have the actors speak Chinese and put in English subtitles. You can still make a really investing movie out of that. For crying out loud, Parasite just won Best Picture. So I think with that in mind, Disney could have most certainly delved into that foreign film genre, and they could have definitely made something truly special here. And as I've mentioned, there's a lot of things to really admire about this remake. The action sequences I think are really cool. It's a gigantic looking movie, but I feel like it just has too many issues to really take it over the top. I definitely feel like it's one of the lesser Disney remakes, unfortunately. And the entire time I was watching it, I just felt like I was watching the inferior cousin of a better movie. I'm gonna give Mulan a C. Now, I'm not going to explicitly say or even recommend to spend $30 on this because no matter what, I was going to pay that because I wanted to watch this movie, but as far as my recommendation goes, I'm just going to let the review speak for itself, and I'm going to let you guys come to your own decision on that. I definitely think it's important to support new releases during this pandemic, but for me personally, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm going to choose between this and the original classic, it's the animation all the way. But what do you guys think of this version of Mulan? Have you seen it yet? Which version do you like more? I'd like to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments section below. As you guys know, I am always game to talk movies and all things entertainment with you guys. And if you guys like my content and you guys want to continue discussing cinema and all things entertainment with me, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can. That way you don't miss any of my future content. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a big fat thumbs up on it on your way out. You guys are awesome, seriously. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for your support of the channel as well. Look forward to more fun content coming up very soon. And with all that being said, back talk, commence.